the nexus of art, science, and technology, entrepreneurship and innovation, experiences and consciousness at the human frontier, and dreams and pursuits on the borderline of insanity. I want to thank Lisa and her wonderful co-hosts from Disney and LEAD. For Lisa, this is an event, it's her brainchild, 20 years in the making. For me, this moment goes almost as far back. The seed of this moment is almost as far back to this autumn day about 16 years ago, 2003. Following 2 years of feeling lost, losing direction, wandering, and then regaining motivation again.
To this day, I have no idea what I said. But I called him Mr. Disney, and he says, "No, call me Walt." Well, that was a step I was unable to take. But why was it important? The man whose name was on the gate that I entered that morning did not presume that I knew who he was. And he wanted to know about me. The most unimportant person on that soundstage. That spoke volumes to me. Dick Ives went out of his way to help me. I tell people today, that had such an impact because Walt Disney made me feel important. And I'm going to ask you, do you make people feel important? That was one of the greatest illustrations of a leader, but a human being, a kind soul. So I get to tell that story, and Disney invites me because he's been gone for a very long time. And there's only a few of us left that have actually met Walt.
I really do think it is being outside of yourself. I think you actually have to step away from who you are and what you're doing and your personal agenda at the time, or your mission, or what you're doing, to make sure that you're taking care of other people. So I believe that true leadership is not telling people what to do or managing down, but it is caring for the people that you serve. And I knew that this happened, and Dee had shared this with me a few months ago, and I really do believe that is the core of what leadership is. Providing that safe environment, that structure, that security, and that understanding of stepping outside of yourself and making sure that you are doing that first. And I think that that really is what happens when we lead a team. If we are in a classroom setting, it's how we take care of our children. It's the way that we look at those things, and then we take the step back and we care for what we need to do, because that's really where we're going to get the most success and the most productivity from what we're doing with our teams.
The basic definition of a leader, someone who's out front making sure it's safe for others to follow. And when you think about that, there are risks of being that first one out. But the other part of it is servant leadership. And I think in both these situations we've talked about, that servant leader that serves the people that are really doing the hands-on work. And when I was retiring from the rep, succession planning, setting yourself up as you lead the group, you let the group come up to you, and eventually your team passes you, but they pick up velocity as they go, and you're available to answer questions, but they're now under new leadership with greater speed, greater velocity.
Okay, so most organizations have employees. And Disney, think about Walt Disney, he first did little cartoons, and then he did actual full-length animation movies. And then he said in his heart, I want to bring my movies to life through a real-life experience, and he created Disneyland in California. And when he opened that theme park, it is exactly that. It wasn't an amusement park. It wasn't the carnival that came to town. It was a theme park. And he was very specific on, as you walk from land to land in a park, the footing under you changes. When you walk from Main Street into Liberty Square, the ground changes from Liberty Square into Frontierland. He said, people can feel the environment through the soles of their feet. And I want this to be such show element that we will not call our employees employees. They are members of the cast. They have a role in the show. So we, in the Disney organization, you wear costumes, not uniforms. You have a role, not a job, and you're a cast member, not an employee. And that becomes part of that enriched, embedded culture. So thank you for that, because I usually preface, because people say cast members, you know. It's all part of the theatrical business. They're cast members in the show. It's so much so that you would not see a cast member that worked on Main Street in their costume walk from Main Street back to Tomorrowland down into the tunnel, because again, subconsciously, any guests that are in that area can sense that something's off. There's something here that doesn't belong. And it's that cast member that's wearing a costume from the 1800s that is now a part of a Tomorrowland environment that's supposed to be futuristic. So they were all the processes that were put in place were kept to maintain the magic for we create happiness. So cast members couldn't go from land to land in their costumes. You had to go underground if you had to go somewhere else.
I was asked, along with every other futurist in the world, to write an essay in memory of the commemoration of the book for next year. So I had to go back and read the book, and I have to admit I hadn't in a long time. But he's incredibly interesting, not with what he predicts, but when he talks about how can we deal with the future. And one of his most interesting ideas was the idea of creating what he called imaginetic centers. Places that would be open to anybody in the public. Places that would have the right kind of facilitation so that people could walk in and play in the future for a few minutes. One of the places where you're starting to see something like this, at least in this country, is in public libraries, who started to say, hey, we're sitting here, we're a great resource, let's start doing things with people. I'm a writer and a storyteller, but what Imagineering is a brilliant term. It's a combination of two terms, imagination and engineering. And the idea is to think of something that does not exist and then have the capabilities to actually create that thing. And that is what Imagineering is. And your first assignment individually is to imagine a child born today and then imagine what they would be like when they reach 21 in 2040. They just turned 21. They're getting ready to launch their adult life. You're going to give them a gift. What is that gift going to be? Totally up to you to decide. I will only put one more parameter on it. Try to come up with something that doesn't exist today.
The themes that we had in common, that there was some technology, of course, in the advancement of what we wanted to see, but it was very related to what was in the past and how we could draw on the past and use that technology and be socially responsible. But the really common thing that was most important to what we wanted all for our children was for them to have some kind of passionate purpose, right? So we had many, many great gifts. So
the 21-year-old of 2040 is going to be very hungry for different experiences, not necessarily being restricted by geography and location, or even necessarily money or financial restrictions, because the technology has become so advanced that you could get places faster with less friction and experience more things. Another theme was the whole concept of formal education to work transition is very different in 2040 than it is now. More like, it's almost like Back to the Future. There's a little bit more apprenticeship type things where the kids are going to be able to have more experiences at work in a real way rather than just reading about it in textbooks.
It's all about how do we equip young people with more knowledge of the past, present, and future, and how do we get them to sort of understand who they really are and who they really want to become. So we had a wisdom box where they can get shared all the knowledge and history. We had an experience of you can go back in the past into like a music concert where you can attend like live events with famous artists.
Some sort of connection, a human connection, and an instantaneous quality about getting what you want instantaneously, right? So what does it say about 2040? Basically, the idea is that people are disconnected and there's a need to reconnect to humankind.
You have been hearing us, and I know you've had mingled in the morning among yourselves, but we can still do some more kind of getting to know each other. So we'll spend just a few minutes to introduce each other to your next seat neighbor, maybe two in a pair. But we'll do it only with our bodies and hands. No word yet. Only after you have done it, and then you can explain what you did. Okay, just I'll demonstrate what I mean by that. Okay. All right, so what I was trying to say is that my name is Beibei. In Chinese, it is shellfish, so that's a shell. If you pry it open, often you can maybe find a pearl in it.
Because the truth is, we face some really serious issues that you guys are going to have to deal with the next 20 years. And if we continue to make decisions about what the solutions are, by making the safe decisions, we will fail. We will not solve some of these big problems. And so what I want to hopefully get all of you to take from this conversation today, which is thank all of you for sharing. But really now, let's talk about how we turn that into a strategy for business, a strategy for innovation, okay? Right. So these are the top 10 problems according to millennials, and I don't know if you can read these or not. Number 1 is climate change. Number 2 is a large-scale war. Number 3 is inequality. So we're going to focus on those three. One of those three, okay? So this is the exercise I want you guys to do. I want you to break up into groups of, say, 2 or 3, and you'll notice at the various tables we put some of the big poster paper. I want you to pick one of those problems. I want you to come up with the most audacious, most risky solution to that problem. Something that nobody else has ever suggested. Something that seems destined to fail, but has at least a 1% chance of being successful. Was common that we actually see, but let's hear what you guys came up with. What was the first group was dealing with inequality?
So the problem statement is to attack inequality, specifically income and discrimination were pointed out. That's the problem statement. We propose to do that in 2 steps. One is to create a third space beyond the work and beyond the home, to make sure that the people of different unequal backgrounds, say for example income backgrounds and so on, can meet and come together for making them aware of their unconscious biases, particularly through things like music and art. So we wanted to have that as a bridge, go back to the basics there.
All right, I know this is a lot. Bear with it, I'll explain it all. So we had a 2-prong approach to affecting inequality. And this was we focused mostly on monetary inequality, but with it I think we'll start raising all boats, because monetary inequality often leads to educational inequality, which then just circles. So 1 prong was to take care of a lot of the loopholes that cause financial inequality. So instead of just a normal tax rate for businesses, we would have a tax rate that's based on the wage gap between the highest earner in the company and the lowest earner in the company. So companies would be motivated to close that gap so that they would pay less in taxes overall.
Now, in the next 10 years, we know that these jobs will be replaced by automation, because the 3D printing multiplied by AI is just gonna basically change everything. What do you do as an African leader when people don't need your cheap labor? When you know that today 41% of the African population is under 15 years old, you know that out of the 2 billion extra people we're gonna have on the planet in the next 20 years, 1.3 will come from Africa. We do have in Africa not only huge business opportunities, but we also have, it is now a liability.
And know that it might hurt. I mean, of course it hurt to me when I first read someone joking about the fact that what a silly person, what a silly little girl that she thinks that she would be able to fulfill this role. You know, that what a joke. Yeah, of course it hurt me, but right, I can take that story now and tell you here. Well, actually, that is, I've got through the pain of that, and that's part of my growth. And now I can tell that story and say to you guys, you know, there is this position that you might be interested in, and there's one above, and just keep rising above. And I have many affirmations I tell myself, which is constantly I say to myself, I get knocked down, but I get up again. There's a song, I don't know if you know it, but it was so often in my head, and they came apart when I'm in the pain part, and it's like, I don't want to get knocked down anymore. I'm so tired. I'm not going to have that song as my thing anymore because I'm tired. And then it's like, but that I have to reclaim it. That is my song. So I dropped that song and I felt terrible. I have had terrible periods of doubting everything. The problem is when you doubt one thing of your beliefs, you start doubting all of them, and then your foundation falls away. And that's the pain. And then, okay, it's like, that is my song, but I'm going to add another one here, which is less about falling down and much more about, growing, pushing up. But I still don't have that one, but it's gonna, and I'm gonna find it, shoot for the moon or shoot for the stars, those things are the good.
I'm gonna get you a song.
Helen Reddy's I Am Woman.
It was those simple things that made changes day after day. I talked to them about, what if the emergency room smelled like the Main Street Bakery? What if it smelled like chocolate chip cookies when you have to get a needle in your chest and your port? What if their room smelled like their house? What if we washed the clothes and the detergents of their home? What if we gave them better washcloths and better towels? What if their activities didn't revolve around their illness, but really stepped back into an experience that wasn't horrible, and we could identify them as just kids? And it really was because of what Disney gave to me and what they taught me and what the value was of an experience and taking care of people that changed everything about what happened in that hospital.
We're going to create a Tomorrowland together. So on the giant papers that are going to be at the tables along with the Play-Doh, the Legos, we're gonna build the future. You're gonna connect it in a sketch, a drawing, and I don't care if it starts as a stick figure because that's how I started, so I appreciate it more than I could even express.
Similar in thought to what we just heard was take the assumption that technology is not a problem anymore, that we solve for a lot. So what are really the pillars of life that you care about? And when it comes to family, community, environment, and work, and how and ideally getting to a point where they all kind of all converge. Whereas today there's really hard separations between all of those. Really the future, when you don't necessarily have the problem of want anymore, having this kind of perfect place to be where you Gene articulate really well.
The common areas for gathering.
Yeah. And that's equal parts, for learning, for socializing, living, and moving yourself and society forward, by way of work or what work will be in the future when it comes to really betterment of yourself and others around you in society. So again, a little more abstract, and we didn't get a chance to do all the variants of color in here, but really, if these were the four corners or the four pillars that exist today, getting to that kind of future state where they're all together in one place, that's really where we, kind of viewed our Tomorrowland to be. So.
And hey, Dad, how about we get a picture with you and Mickey Mouse? Okay, if you like. No, if you like. I don't care. What about Minnie Mouse? Chip and Dale, 2 for the price of 1. Donald Duck. Donald Duck. Donald is hard. If that's what you want. Dad, any character you want. Could I get Pinocchio? Pinocchio, you're on. And so I called my friends in the character department. I said, you gotta help me out on this. And so we wheeled ourselves over into Fantasyland because it would be in Pinocchio Village back when the old Fantasy Fair stage. And Pinocchio comes out and my dad is just you could see how excited he was. And we took a picture of him. They were about the same size at that point. My dad got smaller over time. And so we go back to the hotel and we're sitting and we're reminiscing and talking about that and talking about your day at Disney. And now I finally said, hey Dad, why Pinocchio? Those were the songs that I sang to you when you were a little boy. I had always known those songs. And he said, particularly, when you wish upon a star, it makes no difference who you are. That illustrated to me, we don't own it. You